Would you all give a warm welcome to Rabbi David Zaslow?
Thank you so much. What an honor to be here. So, we have a little time just to talk about the nature of Judaism, 3,000-year-old religion. So, I'll be done at about 4 p.m. But I do want to have questions and answers, so I'll try to not make it abbreviated, but just really get to some highlights about the religious tradition. What's that? Closer? Jesse, can I get a little more volume, I think? Yeah. The first thing to say is that when you study and then practice spiritual traditions, if you're blessed, you come to a place where you realize there is only one faith. There's only one religion. And that all the separations and the unique distinctions between the faith traditions and the religions are more like ecological diversity. There's this kind of tree and that kind of tree and this kind of flower and that kind of flower. Or to use another metaphor, it's like a symphony. And each faith tradition, each religion gets one instrument. No, you don't get them all. Just one. And so if your faith tradition is violin and another tradition is the piccolo and the third one is the cello, somebody gets the triangle. And that's not less or more. It's just that we're all part of a single orchestra. So I want to start from that universal point of view. One of the great Catholic mystics, Teilhard de Chardin, said, I can really only ascend to the universal through the particular. So he said, I descend to the particular in order to ascend to the universal. So I'm really a big believer in that through my Judaism, the more Jewish I am, the more potential energy I build to be able to go to that place of universality. Now, Judaism, like all the Abrahamic religions, have an inner and an outer, meaning is the outer part is all the practices and the rituals and the songs and the languages, etc. But the inner really teaches that we're all part of God, we're all connected to God. So whether it's Sufism in Islam, or whether it's in the Hasidic tradition, Kabbalistic Judaism, the notion is that at a very, very, very deep level, there's nothing to pray to, it's just to be with. So when you're doing a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful music, and I was thinking about peace and shalom, peace is nothing you go after. Peace just is. And so when we're singing shalom or salam, what we're trying to get to is the peace that already exists. You know, you can't get to peace. In fact, the harder you try to get to peace, the less peace it is. Have you noticed that in your life, you know? So what we have to do is kind of let go of the things that are not peaceful. In fact, that's the problem with politics and peace, is because too much peace is trying to be forced on people. You can't force peace because peace is the least force there is. Right? So that's kind of the universal dimension of Judaism, and it's, like I said, similar to the mystical traditions in Hinduism and Buddhism. It's similar to the traditions really in all faith traditions. What we have going on now in the world is this incredible, I won't call it a merger, but an influence of all the traditions upon each other. So Judaism is an earth-based religion. It's seasonalities. We have 4 New Years, one for each season. And not only is it an earth-based tradition, but it's also a planting and harvest tradition. But here's what happened. As the Jewish people were forced to flee our land from the Roman Empire and living in parts of Eastern Europe or wherever we were living and not permitted to own land, that we've kind of lost that love and feeling. We lost that connection to the earth, but it's in our prayers and it's in our holidays. So our 3 major festivals are an autumn Thanksgiving festival called Sukkot. We live outside and we hang out outside and we pray outside, and that's a harvest festival. And then in the springtime we have Passover, which originally was a lambing harvest festival, and then in the early summertime we have the celebration of the early summer harvest. What's really incredible is that these three festivals of autumn and spring and summer then became connected to a story. And the story is the story of enslavement and liberation from our slavery. So here you have this multi-dimensional, multi-layered story overlaid upon an agricultural holiday, which is overlaid upon what's natural in us, which is the celebration of planting and harvest. And every one of us, whether we're farmers or not, are planting and harvesting on a spiritual level. And on that spiritual level, when you then express it through your ritual in the spring, it's my guitar tuner who wanted to be part of the action. So when you overlay the personal journeys that we're all going through, because we're so influenced by the seasons, so in the fall, we all fall inward. And what happens in the fall as we go inward is that we start harvesting. And when we're harvesting, we're giving thanks. So that thanksgiving is mirroring, our mirror neurons see ourselves in the agricultural cycle. So what happened in Eastern Europe was very interesting because we really went deeply, deeply, deeply inward. And so Judaism arose, modern Judaism arose 2,000 years ago in our exile. And so it became very important for us to take our text. If you take a look at the history of Judaism, we were a temple-based religion. So we would go to Jerusalem 3 times a year for these festivals. We would bring offerings, and the offerings were shared with the priesthood. They were shared with the poor, anybody that needed food, the grain offerings, the fruit offerings, the animal offerings. It was all shared in the community. But when the temple was destroyed, Judaism didn't get destroyed. We just went inward. We went inward into the text. And we developed something called congregational worship. So what we're doing here now arose 2,000 years ago out of the necessity in Judaism. We were either going to be destroyed, because if you read the 5 books of Moses, it's very much about go to the temple of Jerusalem, bring this, do this ritual, that ritual. Well, when those rituals were impossible to do, we still had a religion, because we just take the offerings where you're going to do an offering later, right? And that offering comes from that idea of you taking something of yourself and giving it away, giving it to someone else. So the animal offering, the fruit offering, the wonderful, no longer necessary. Because what's happening on this deep, deep embedded metaphor was to give something of yourself. And that becomes universal. You see it in Buddhism, you see it in Hinduism. What's really cool in the northern hemisphere where we live is that you see all around the world in the northern hemisphere the Jewish practice. Wherever I go, in any synagogue, we're going to have the basic same elements. So I'm going to take this out. And you know what's cool about being here, because my colleague, Rabbi Julie Benioff, you guys meet at our shul, at our synagogue, and the 1 week that I'm talking, I'm at my colleague's synagogue. So wherever we go, can you hear me? Wherever we go, can everybody just stand for a moment? This is what we do when we open our ark, and inside the ark is a model of the Holy of Holies. And so I'm not going to open it for you. And that's part of the beautiful mystery, is that you go from the outside and you get closer and you get closer, and then you go inside. And so this becomes a miniature temple of the ancient temple in Jerusalem. And in any synagogue anywhere in the world, it's going to have the basic features of an eternal light, of an ark, a fancy ark, a less fancy ark, and going inward and inward until the sacred word is read. And it's read on a Torah table, such as this is a Torah table, and that can be used for a Torah table. It's a scroll. It opens up. Maybe sometime at the hover I'll take ours out for you, right? But basically it's going inward. It's taking something external, the temple in Jerusalem, and making it local to every single synagogue in the world. The same spiritual practice. You can be seated. So you see what I'm saying? We've taken the temple and we transferred it and made it local into all the synagogues, so well, everybody is a part of it. So, I think what I loved about Reverend Kathy, about your music, is that it opens the heart so deeply. And that opening of the heart lets you then learn, which what I'm doing as this next level, but it wouldn't have been possible unless we had that music before to open us up, right? So the heart and the mind are deeply connected together, and of course where we're going to, which is the soul, our connection to God. Now, you know, it's easy to say, okay, Judaism was the first monotheistic religion, right? Abraham was not the first monotheist. There were many monotheists before, but he began to codify and began to develop a system that became a religion. We basically have three phases in Jewish history. In the Abrahamic phase, we were the Hebrews. The word in Hebrew, Ivrim, the people from the other side, because Abraham left, let's say modern day, it would really be modern day Iraq. He left the Tigris and Euphrates rivers. He was guided to go to the to California. I mean to the Mediterranean Sea, and there he was going. And then the second phase occurs with Moses, and it goes from the Hebrew phase to the Israelite phase. And the Israelites, the word Israel means God wrestler. And this becomes, I'd say, the theme of our people, is that we wrestle with God. We wrestle with reality. It's the only faith that I know where we have heroes and we really challenge them. I mean, you should hear, we don't say it in public, but behind your back, what we say about Moses and Abraham, you wouldn't believe it. We challenge them. Why did you do this, Moses? Why didn't you do that, right? We become God wrestlers. And it comes from Abraham, who's bargaining with God to save the lives. Remember, you know the story in Genesis? To save the lives of the people in Sodom. And he challenges them. He challenges God. Well, what if there's 100 righteous people? God says, okay, if there's 100, I won't destroy the city. And Abraham says, what about 50? Right? He keeps going. He's bargaining with God. And then later on in this story, it tells that God, an angel commands him to sacrifice his son, and he's willing to do it. And so the rabbis, so you were arguing on behalf of Sodom and Gomorrah when God commanded you, but for your own son you wouldn't argue? And so our dialogue with the text becomes intimate. It becomes, I don't mean argumentative in a negative sense, but trying to figure this out. What is right? What is not right? And so in this God wrestling, we take our texts. We have two Torahs. What's written in there is the 5 books of Moses. That's the written Torah. But we have another Torah called the oral Torah. And that's our collection of stories, and it's a collection of arguments. And we made these sacred in something called the Talmud, or the oral Torah. And what's really cool when you're studying the oral Torah, it's not to come to agreement. It's coming to try to understand the position of somebody in a different situation. So there you have the intellectual basis of Judaism for the last 2,000 years. And, you know, I was looking this up a while back. I had to confirm it yesterday. But we're 0.2% of the world's population. 0.2%. There are 16 million Jews, 1 billion plus Muslims, 2 billion plus Christians. We're 16 million. It's a tiny percentage, let alone of the world's religions. And yet Nobel Prizes, 22%. Why? We're not smarter than anybody else, but we know how to argue. And argue in the sense if something is challenging to us about heart disease, something's challenging to us about a legal issue, something is challenging to us about science in some way, we'll push back against it because we're used to it. We push back against God. We could do it against normal scientific theory of the day. And so you have an enormous amount of Jewish people in the world of the sciences, in the world of law, in the world of medicine. I was looking it up, and I found out that like 50% of the civil rights lawyers during the civil rights movement, 50% of the lawyers were Jewish, right? Again, why do we have so many Jewish lawyers and Jewish doctors? Because we challenge authority. And again, I don't mean it in a negative way, but challenging the, like this is what seems like, we can't do that because we have these limits and these limits. And there's always going to be some Jewish guy saying, yeah, but wait a minute, how about doing it this way, right? And that kind of creativity kind of moves into all areas of who we are and where we're at our best. So you find an inordinate numbers of Jewish people who are violinists, not pianists, because you can't travel with the piano. It's a little bit difficult. But the fiddler on the roof, the fiddling, we could travel with that instrument. So how we get to this through our spiritual practices, it's really identical to all faith traditions. You got to go from the body, celebrate the heart with music, the mind with some learning, and then the soul to connect with God. In Christianity, it's the communion service, whatever it is. In Judaism, it's text-based, but it's a way to connect to God, something called the Amidah. And we also do it through something called the Nigun, and I want to kind of demonstrate that. And Reverend Kathy, you'll keep your eye on the time for me because I'll take your time. Okay. So, that's a spiritual practice. You'll notice Reverend Kathy, when she speaks sometimes, she'll play the music behind. You know why? Because the music opens your heart. And anything she has to say will go down much easier with the sweetness of music. So just what I'm doing now is very much part of our tradition. The music opens the heart without words, so that anything I speak is not, even as I'm doing this, I feel less of me and more of the guidance coming through me. And if I did it long enough, I wouldn't even stay on the topic of what is Judaism. I would just go where God wants me to go. But I promised Kathy that I wouldn't listen to God today. I don't listen to you. We have a deep connection to our ancestors, like heaven all religions. But we really get to our ancestors through these particular nigunim. There was a man named Levi Yitzchak of Berdichev, the Berdichever Rebbe from this city, this town called Berdichev in Ukraine. And when he was dying, his students were saying, where are we going to get our learning from without you? And he says, I'm not leaving. I'm just leaving the physical plane. In fact, whenever you want me, just sing this nigun and I'll be there. And so this has been a spiritual practice of mine for the last 20 years, that I sing this nigun when I feel disconnected from my own ancestors. Because of this. Try that with me. Now think of an ancestor of yours, a grandparent, a great-grandparent, somebody you loved, or maybe somebody you never met, but you feel the presence of that great-great-grandmother or great-great-grandfather. Try to just hold their image in your mind. Hold that image in your mind, and then sing with me. Ay, 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 God join you. Ay, 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 See how it works? The ancestors are there. Peace is there. Love is there. It's just getting all the stuff out of the way, because we live in a world of duality where I have to do something to get there, right? When the reality is you don't have to do anything, just it's there. But you need a spiritual practice to get you there. Meditation does it. Singing does it. But especially singing without words. And having an image. I need guidance from my grandparents. My great-grandparents, I never met them. I know they're there, right? I have 2 parents, 4 grandparents, 8 great-grandparents. They want to go to work. You know, we're a little bored. I mean, heaven's nice, but give me a job to do. And that has to do with angels as well. So we have a big tradition of angels. On I'm going to sing this song. I think I'll sing it in English and then in Hebrew. On the right side of you is Michael. So you might want to just open your hand to the right, just a little bit. At your left hand is Gabriel. Open your left hand to Gabriel. In front of you is the angel Uriel. Open your hand to Uriel. And behind you is Raphael, the angel in back of you. And Michael means kindness, and Gabriel means strength, and Uriel means the light of the future, and Raphael means I'm going to fix up, I'll be the healing angel and help you heal from all your mistakes. So we have a big tradition of calling on the angels. This is in every prayer book. It's done by children starting at 2-3 years old in bed at night. It's a bedtime prayer. I'll do the English first. In the name of Adonai, God of Israel, at my right hand is Michael, at my left hand Gabriel. Before me is Uriel. Before me is Uriel, behind me Raphael. That's it, above your head. Above my head, the holy Shekhinah. Shekhinah is the feminine name of God, the mothering presence of God. Try it again. In the name of Adonai, God of Israel, at my right hand is Michael, at my left hand Gabriel, and before me is Uriel, behind me Raphael, and above my head, holy Shekhinah. Will everybody please rise if you'd like to? I'm going to do it in Hebrew now, but you've got the basic idea. The right, the left, in front of you, behind you, and above your head, okay? You won't understand it, it doesn't matter, okay? Right side is kindness, left side is strength, before you is hope, the future, behind you is healing in the past, and above your head, our mothers. Shekhinah. Shem Adonai, Elohei Yisrael, right side. Mimini Michael, left side. Micholi Gavriel, Umilfanai Uriel, Mechorai Raphael, above your head. Yal-Roshi Shekhinah, the mothering presence of God. Shekhinah. Be seated. Judaism, this is really silly, but a friend of mine, who's the cantor, the husband of the rabbi here, said to me, I started using AI, what is it called, AI chat or something like that, to study the Torah every week. He's getting all the commentaries. I said, you're kidding, is it work? He said, it's great. So I signed up this morning and I realized, I'm giving a talk here, so I asked, what are the basics of Judaism? It's not that I don't know them, but there's so much in one part of me, I forgot that, we're big on mitzvot. You know what a mitzvah is? A commandment. There are 613 thou shalts and thou shalt nots in the Torah. And we kind of take them literally, don't murder, don't steal, right? Love your neighbor as yourself, love God with your heart. There's 613 of them. And each one is called a mitzvah. So what's really cool is that we're walking around, if we're religious Jews, in this relationship with God that's really, really intimate. It's sort of like in Fiddler on the Roof. Reb Tevi is constantly talking to God. God's constantly talking to him. The presence of God. And we're doing it with these commandments. We're doing it through the fulfilling commandments. So one of the elements that I forgot to write down in taking my notes was called covenant. We have what's called a brit. It means we got an arrangement with God. God, you do this. You take care of the creation, keeping it going, and we'll take care of the planet. We'll take care of our part. I'm not doing a very good job. But The covenant is ecological, the covenant is physical, is biological. There are all these covenantal parts that I have to take care of my body. God, you just keep it running, but I'm going to take care of it. You see? So there's this intimate relationship relationship with God. And that's called a mitzvot. And one of the mitzvot is to understand the relationship between time and space. And time and space means this. So space, I want to make it beautiful. I want to keep it clean. I want to make it just fantastic for everybody to feel welcome. But time, I have to have a Sabbath. So our Shabbat, our Sabbath is Friday night through Saturday. And it's a time just to don't do stuff. I mean, that's basically what the Torah says. Don't do stuff. You got 6 days to do stuff, 1 day don't do stuff. So you'll see religious Jewish people, in different ways, some interpret it much more strictly than others. I don't drive on Shabbat, but I will drive to the synagogue, right? I don't write, but I do study. I don't do commerce. I don't check my retirement fund or anything like that. That's 6 days of the week. So this whole idea of time and space, Abraham Joshua Heschel, you want to learn about Judaism, read a book called The Sabbath by Abraham Joshua Heschel. It's an incredible little book. And he says basically the rest of the world were building cathedrals that were astounding. We build a cathedral every Saturday, every Friday night, and it's called the Sabbath. We build a cathedral in time. So I think I want to pause right there, and I want to open it up to questions. I don't want to see, again, I'm just being a little paranoid in terms of time. I want to make sure we're okay. We're good? Okay. Okay, yeah, good. So please, yeah.
Do you have training in arguing?
Yeah, I do. What, you want to argue? Okay. No, disputation, we say l'shem shamayim, for the sake of heaven. Yeah, you have to be trained to do it. In other words, you don't take things at their face value. I'll just give you a really simple example. We have a tradition in Hanukkah, we light 1 candle the first night, 2 candles the second night, all the way to the 8th. Well, one of the other great rabbis in the first century said, no. The first night you should light 8, and the second light only 7, and you should go the other direction. So the rabbis had a big debate about it. And here's the conclusion they came to. In this world we live in, we need to add light into the world. So we should go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. But when the Messiah comes, we won't be afraid of the dark. So we'll go 8, 7, 6, 5, 4. And so we can live in the darkness. So that came out of an argument, you see. And both of those are recorded, and both of those were considered elu ve'elu. These and these are the words of the living God. Good question. Anybody else? Come on, argue with me. Yes?
Can you tell me why it's called Judaism? I mean, the origin of the word?
Yeah, actually, one of the heads of the tribes was named Judah, and his name in Hebrew means gratitude or thanksgiving. So we're supposed to be the Thanksgiving people. So named after that whole idea of giving thanks. Just like Christianity, Christos in the Greek, it means to anoint. Christianity at its best is anointing, not making people Christian. That's at its worst. But at its best, just anointing people and saying you're here for a special purpose. Islam comes from the word salam, peace. Islam at its best is supposed to be, help bringing peace into the world. And Judaism at its best is supposed to be bringing gratitude. So that's the origin of the name Judaism. Good question. Yes, Jesse? I can't see. What's that? Oh, thank you. Oh, I'm so sorry, Zoomies. Right, I will definitely repeat the questions. Yes, please, in the back.
Can you talk about the process of killing animals for meat?
Can I, what?
What's the process that the religious...
The kosher dietary laws?
Yeah.
Yes, I will. I'll speak about it. So the question is, can I speak about the kosher dietary laws and the animals and the slaughter of animals for meat? First of all, there's 2 great traditions in Judaism, which is there's a big vegetarian and non-meat tradition in Judaism. You can go to cities in New York and you can find dairy delicatessens. You won't get pastrami, but you'll get some good kasha varnishkas and other knishes and things like that. So the kosher dietary laws were originally rooted in ecological consciousness. Example, shellfish. They're the most delicate and important part of the ecosystem because they are filters. They eat all the junk the refuse on the shores. In fact, in Chesapeake Bay, when they were taking the clams out and collecting the clams, they found out that they took so many clams that they actually had destroyed the oldest pollution. We're 2 miles up the road in Chesapeake Bay, where you couldn't get to the shoreline, the water was clean. And they realized the clams were like filters. Mussels are filters. Shrimp are like filters. So I don't eat shellfish. And I think it's, for the reason of ecological awareness. Now, in terms of meat, I want to say something about that. The laws are very strict about the way you kill an animal. It's got to be, in fact, you can't even take an egg if the mother is there, you cannot take that egg. You have to shoo the chicken away or tempt it away with something else and then take the egg, so you don't upset the mother chicken. And so it is with kosher slaughter, when in the ideal, the animal is to be treated with utmost respect, and the way the animal is slaughtered in a way that it absolutely minimizes pain. Now, I will have to say that after World War II, when animal slaughter became industrialized, I think most kosher meats are no longer kosher because they've lost that sense, the sensibility and sensitivity to the animals themselves. But I have seen it done well, where an animal is slaughtered with absolute minimal pain. So you have that. You have both traditions of Judaism, but certainly kosher is a very, very important part of our tradition. Great question. Anybody else? Yeah.
I understand that there's a mother lineage that you can't be Jewish unless your mother was Jewish, right?
Well, that's sort of true. First of all, anybody can become Jewish. You can convert to Judaism. We have a sign-up sheet outside. So. But it's a matrilineal descent. So in the matrilineal descent, in most of Judaism, your mother has to be Jewish, otherwise you have to go through a conversion ceremony. Now, in the liberal Judaisms, in the United States especially, that's much more loosely defined. So we also honor patrilineal descent, in fact, in our synagogue, as long as both parents are practicing Judaism, right?
And is the earth seen as a mother?
What's that?
Is the earth seen as a mother?
Yeah, I think in most traditions, the question, I keep forgetting Zoom, sorry. Is the earth seen as the mother? Yeah, in most traditions, the metaphor of the earth and the sun are mother and father, absolutely. Thank you. Yeah, please.
If you feel to, I would just like you to speak for a moment about your feelings about what's happening in Israel right now.
Okay, thank you very much, everybody. That's so challenging. Kathy would like me to just say something about what's happening in Israel right now. So,
Just a moment.
yeah, I will. No, I think it's very, very important. Listen, Hagar and Sarah are like this in the next world. Abraham and Ishmael are like this in the next world. We just haven't caught up. So there's this competition between the brothers, between Isaac and Ishmael. And the situation on a deepest level is that we want to get to that place where it already exists. Sufis know it. Kabbalist Jewish mystics know it. It's a question of will we get to that place of recognizing it. So in the meantime, there's the conflict. The conflict between will the Arab world accept the existence of Israel? Right? How can Israel survive in the midst of the Arab world? And so I don't want to, of course, get into the politics of it because it's too profound, but I will recommend a book by Noah Tishby, Tishby, Noah Tishby, on the history of Israel. And I want to leave it at that because it's so much wiser for you to read it in detail rather than me giving too quick an answer. But I do want to say, please go to Israel when you get a chance. It's an amazing place. It's Jews and Christians and Muslims and Druze and Bedouin and non-religious people, huge LGBTQ movement. It's an amazingly diverse nation where people are living in harmony in the nation of Israel. It's just the neighbors have to catch up. Thank you. It's a good call. Of course. Yeah, good. Thanks. Thank you. How are we doing on time?
Any more questions? We've got another.
Yeah, please.
So I grew up in the Methodist church, and I'm told that John Wesley was using kind of this
Yeah.
all of those somehow to help making decisions in life. Is there one of those four things, reason, experience, scripture, and tradition, that gets to be on top and say, no, 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 if you're in conflict in these other areas?
That's a great question. I don't know how to rephrase it quickly, but basically, in the Methodist tradition, the relationship between reason and faith and scripture and what else? And experience, how they hold together. I would say very much in Judaism we've got that too. So that when we want to make a decision, it's based on what whatever ancestors have done. Okay, that they would have done that, but that was a different world. You know, they didn't have internet in those days, so what do we do now? And then you use reason to discern it out, and then you pray and you try to get divine guidance, and then you take a look at Scripture and see what it says. So I think all of those elements really come together, certainly in Jewish thought and thinking. In fact, let me illustrate that with a little chant. And the chant that we do in our synagogue goes like this. Lord, I want to do for you. Lord, I want to feel for you. Lord, I want to know for you. Lord, I want to be for you. It's like the body, the heart, the mind, and soul, these four dimensions. So it goes like this. And if you want to stand, you can. You can touch your bellies, your hearts, your minds, and then raise your hands to the heavens. Lord, I want to do for you your physicality. Lord, I want to feel for you your emotions. Lord, I want to know for you. Lord, I want to be for you. You are action, you are feeling, you are knowledge, you are being, you are action, you are feeling, you are knowledge, you just are. One little closing story. 150 years ago in the city in Ukraine, you can be seated, in Chernobyl. It was a great Hasidic Jewish center. I know we know it today, Chernobyl, sadly, because of the nuclear power plant disaster. But at one time it was a great seat of Jewish learning. And the rabbi there, the Rabbi of Chernobyl, people would come to him and say, I can't believe in God. With all the wars and fighting that are going on, I can't believe in God. And at Chernobyl, the Rabbi said this. I am alive. You are alive. We are alive. We're alive. This was his wisdom. And who is this aliveness I am? And who is this aliveness I am? Say it with me. Who is this aliveness I am? Is it not the Holy Blessed One? Is it not the Holy Blessed And who is this aliveness I am? And who is this aliveness I am? And who is this aliveness I am? Is it not the Holy Blessed? So he said, you don't have to believe in God, because you just want God to believe in you. You don't want an angel going to God and saying, dear God, do you believe in David Zaslow? And God says, I don't know. I can't prove his existence. So the Chernobyl Rebbe just said, God is the life force that's in all of creation. Thank you. And by the way, all those songs, when you come back to the synagogue next week, it's in the pocket in front of you is a prayer book, and they're all in there. So you just look up the angel song. It's going to be in there, Lord, I want to do for you. So thank you, Kathy, so much. I just love this.